Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on a pretty highly requested gun. This is the Ruger Mark IV 2245. Now we all know Ruger makes extremely high quality 22 firearms. I think the 1022 and the Mark series of pistols really put them on the radar of many gun owners years and years ago. And a lot of times when people think of Ruger, they think of their 22 firearms. The one thing about the Ruger 22s that I really like is that they are dedicated guns and that they're not scaled down versions of other guns. They're unique designs into themselves. And I think that actually produces a higher quality and more reliable firearm. A lot of times when you take another gun and scale it down to a smaller caliber and you have to change the locking mechanism, you're going to have to use lighter materials, and often that means cheaper materials. You're going to have to change things that are intrinsic about the design, and it just causes reliability issues. Now, a lot of those guns can be fun, but Ruger seems to have taken a different approach and designed the guns from the ground up with 22 caliber in mind. Now, the 2245 essentially is their Mark series of pistols, but it uses a more familiar 1911 style frame on the bottom. So you have a 1911 grip angle. The manual of arms feels very similar to that of a standard 1911. And so I think to most shooters, this feels right at home because they're used to shooting 1911s, especially here in the United States. This is also an extremely attractive pistol. I love those little race holes there in the front around the barrel. It is threaded so it can accept a suppressor. It's kind of a space age gun on top, but kind of a classic look on the bottom. Something else that I really like that I think leads itself to being a very reliable firearm is the fact that the slide is so small here in the back. Normally when you scale down another type of firearm, you have this big gigantic slide, and as I said, you have to use lighter material so the slide can cycle with 22. Well, Ruger does away with that and just has this little tiny slide in the back. It's a great idea, so you don't have to have a lot of mass here, so you can have a lot of mass and quality materials in the upper. So before I talk more about this gun, let's just go right into my first shots at the range and get my initial impressions. So after my first magazine, I gotta say I noticed a couple things. The first thing is this gun feels exceptionally robust and high quality. It's heavy. Well, heavy for a 22. You can tell it's made with high quality materials. I really like that. The gun also appears to be pretty darn accurate. I was aiming for the middle of the target, but as you can see, the grouping was really high, and that has to do with this red dot. I'm gonna have to zero it and spend a little bit of time trying to get that dot down, but the grouping overall was pretty good. In fact, I'm gonna do a little shooting off camera to try to get this dot to get a little bit lower. But so far, I really like the way this thing feels, and of course being a 22 has almost no recoil whatsoever. So my initial thoughts and opinions of this thing is really high quality. I like the way it's shooting, but let me spend a little bit more time trying to zero the red dot, and let's then put another magazine down range and see if the grouping gets any better. So after spending some time with this gun trying to zero the red dot, I've discovered a slight issue. No matter how low I get the dot on this, in fact it's set all the way down, the grouping is still a little bit high at 7 and 10 yards. I'm not sure if that has to do something with the Picatinny rail or how this red dot is mounted. It's pretty close, but you can't bring the dot down any further. The grouping is still exceptional, so I really do like that. And I gotta say, putting more rounds down range, and right now I'm using Remington Golden Bullet. I'm having absolutely no problems with this gun. So far, it has been exceptionally reliable with all of the ammunition that I have put through it. Right now, I'm just putting some basic range ammo through it. I'm gonna use some CCI mini mags towards the end of this review as well, and you guys know that's some of the best 22 ammunition out there. But right now, the only issue that I've discovered is the red dot is still a little bit high, even though I've adjusted it all the way down. The ejection is also really good. Sometimes though, this thing will eject the cases a little bit to the front, almost in the 2 o'clock position. Well, I'm gonna load up the magazine again and put some more rounds down range. Another thing too I've noticed is that when I insert the magazine, there is something a little bit odd for me. This is an extremely angled magazine. So when I insert it, I kind of want to put it back almost like I'm inserting a 1911 magazine, which doesn't have that same angle. So I have to find myself being a little bit more deliberate with my reloads and making sure the magazine is in the back part of the grip, not the center. I know it's just something I would have to get used to, and probably helps with the reliability since 22 is a rimmed cartridge. And that kind of brings up another thing I was thinking about. I wish they could come up with a higher capacity magazine for this gun. I know that when it comes to 22 being rimmed, the more rounds you put in a magazine, the more unreliable it becomes. But I'd like to think that Ruger, who's kind of the masters of 22 long rifle, could figure something out when it comes to that. But anyway, let's do a little bit more shooting. Before we go on and talk about ammunition, I wanted to talk about some terminology that I used that was incorrect a few moments ago. I said that I was bringing the dot down. I know if the gun is shooting up, I need to bring the dot up so it matches the point of aim. When I was talking about bringing the dot down, I meant that I was bringing the point of aim down. I know some people are going to mention that in the comments section below, and I just wanted to clarify that. But let's talk about ammunition for a second. I wanted to do a little bit of test. I have a ton of standard velocity 22 ammunition, and normally this stuff does not run in semi-automatic firearms. So I wanted to give it a shot. I've never shot a Ruger Mark IV before this, and I was curious if this super duper lightweight slide in the back would be light enough to cycle standard velocity ammo. I didn't think that it would, but I thought I would give it a shot. Well, I'll show you the results. And of course, that's going to be a big nope, but it was worth trying out. As I said, I have a ton of standard velocity 22, and all of my 22s are semi-auto, so I was kind of hoping it would work, but I didn't think that it would. But speaking of ammo, I brought out my CCI mini mags, arguably the best 22 caliber ammunition out there that's on the market. And of course, I wanted my wife to shoot this. She loves 22, she likes 1911, so I really think she's going to enjoy shooting this. I'm also curious to see what she thinks about the trigger. I'm going to talk about the trigger in a moment because I think it is really nice, but very, very light. Well, let's have her put some rounds down range and let's see what she thinks. And as I suspected, she really liked it. She likes 1911s, she likes 22s, and this is the perfect blend between the two. She also talked about how comfortable it was with her hands. As you guys know, she has smaller hands, and I always mention this. One of her biggest complaints with a gun will be her fingernails will dig into her non-shooting hand. I know that sometimes women, of course, that like to have their fingernails all done up all nice and pretty will complain about stuff like this. I think she has a pretty darn good grip, and she's pretty experienced at shooting. And she's very sensitive to the styles of grips, the width, the length. I really can't narrow it down. It's kind of on a gun-by-gun basis, but she felt this was very comfortable. So I guess if you have smaller hands or are a lady and like to have your nails done, my wife says it's a great gun for you, and it doesn't bother her whatsoever. Now, she did really like the trigger in this. Now, personally, I don't like to dry fire 22 caliber guns because, you know, it can damage the chamber. Now, Ruger says these guns are safe to dry fire, but I don't want to do it too often. But I did do it a couple times before I got to the range, and I gotta say this trigger is exceptionally light and exceptionally crisp. In fact, the trigger is so light that when I dry fire it, I kind of worry it's too light. I would be worried about having a negligent discharge. So while I would never recommend a 22 caliber for personal protection, I actually think this trigger is too light for personal protection. But because the trigger is so good, and I think this is more of a target trigger, I was curious how fast I could go with this gun. Well, let me show you. So all I can say is, wow, I can shoot this thing fast. And that's just because this thing has a fantastic trigger in it. When you dry fire it, you feel like it might be a little bit unsafe, but when you get it at the range, it is absolutely awesome. Another thing about this gun that I really like is the takedown. When I first got into guns, I think the Mark III series was the popular series at the time, and the biggest complaint about that and all the series that came before it was the fact that they were very difficult to take down. When the Mark IVs came out, their biggest innovation was their takedown. So if you pull the hammer back, of course you gotta drop the magazine, put the gun on safe, and there's a little button here in the back. You push that, the whole upper receiver comes off and slides right off, and it's very easy to clean and take apart. I absolutely love that. And it's just as easy to put back together. That is just awesome compared to the Mark III series. So I really hand it to Ruger. They listened to their consumers, and good on them for that. Also, it's a very attractive pistol made with excellent materials. I do know the upper receiver can be bought in a variety of colors. I believe this one from Jack here is just in a orangish kind of a gold, but you can get it in pink, green, silver, black, you name it, any color to your heart's content. So I really like that from Ruger as well, giving us a lot of options. While this might not be a gun that is high on my list of priorities to get, it's definitely one that I'm interested in eventually getting. I also like how this barrel shroud comes all the way out here, and if you take off this thread protector here, it exposes the threaded barrel, which you can put a suppressor on. And because the barrel shroud comes all the way out, it would look like it goes right into the suppressor, so you wouldn't have a lot of space or gap. It's quite a unique little design. I really like that. Aesthetically, the gun gets a lot of high marks from me. The only issue that I had with it was the fact that this red dot cannot be zeroed very well. As I said, I'm not sure if it's the Picatinny rail, I'm not sure if it's the red dot. Jack will have to figure that out. But when it came to the firearm itself, its fit, function, reliability, 5 out of 5 stars. Its aesthetics, 5 out of 5 stars. But something's up with this Picatinny rail, so I'm going to deduct just a little bit for that. So how on my star rating when I give the Ruger Mark IV 2245? Well, I'm going to give it a very glowing 4.75 stars out of 5. Almost another perfect review. I'm very impressed with it. Normally, I'm not a big fan of the Ruger firearms. You guys know I always mention that I have a hard time forgiving them for their support of gun control back in the late 1980s and 1990s. And everybody says they're not the same company they were back then, because back then Bill Ruger ran the show. and he's no longer there. And I understand and I agree, and they do listen to their customers, and from all reports, they have amazing customer service as well. So 4.75 stars out of 5. I believe that is very fair for a very high quality pistol that gives you a lot of options, easy to disassemble and clean, extremely accurate, very attractive, and made for some very high quality materials. I absolutely love this. And now that I've gotten to shoot it, it's gone up on my list of wants. While it might not top the list, I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for one of these. Maybe one in the right color. I like green, who knows? I think they sell one in green. That'd be awesome to find. But I do want to find out more about this issue with zeroing the red dot. Besides that, it was almost a perfect review. So there you go, my review of the Ruger Mark IV 2245. Just an awesome little pistol here. Love that 1911 grip angle, beautiful gun, ran reliably. I really have nothing negative to say about it. It's a fantastic gun, and if this is a gun that you've been looking at, I highly recommend you go out and take a look at one and maybe buy one. So there you go. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and what do you guys think about the Mark IV series? I'd love to know your thoughts, and as always, thanks for watching.